Hello and welcome. I'm Deji Bademasi. Now, reactions have continued to trail the sudden exit of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger from regional economic bloc ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States. And of course, there have also been expressions of security concerns. The three nations led by military juntas announced the withdrawal in a televised broadcast on Sunday, accusing the regional body of becoming, quote, a threat to member states. According to a joint communique issued by the military juntas of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, the withdrawal from ECOWAS after nearly half a century takes effect immediately. They said the regional bloc, under the influence of foreign powers, has betrayed its founding principles and failed to aid its member states in their fight against terrorism and insecurity. They also criticized sanctions imposed on the military regimes by ECOWAS. However, the bloc says it remains committed to finding a negotiated solution to the political impasse. Since the announcement, many have expressed concerns over the decision of the three countries to withdraw their membership from ECOWAS, saying it will negatively impact Africa's development and industrialization. Some have said the withdrawal of these three countries would have implications on the bloc itself in terms of its mandate and purpose for integration to ensure joint security and economic integration. Now, there's also the question of what happens to the various transition programs that ECOWAS had actually been pushing these various military regimes now to implement. To discuss this further, I'm being joined on the program by international security and geopolitical expert Fidel Owusu. He joins us from Accra, Ghana. Fidel, thank you very much for coming on the program. First off, give me your take. Were you surprised that matters would come to this point, that the three countries would announce that they're withdrawing from ECOWAS?
Yeah, thank you very much, sir, for the opportunity. Firstly, I would like to say that I was not surprised with respect to the event itself or the announcement, but I was surprised at the timing that early January 2024, the junta will come out like this. That surprised me. But in terms of the event or the announcement itself that they were moving away, it has not been surprised because over the months, they have been showing signs that they didn't want to have anything to do with ECOWAS. And so they decided to form a bloc and subsequently decided to create a political-military alliance that was supposed to defend their interests. And according to what they said, an attack against one of them would be an attack against all of them. So that has not been surprising. Yeah.
Now, we know ECOWAS has been pushing these various military governments now to come up with a comprehensive transition program. At some point, Mali came up with something, but later reneged on it. Niger, there's still no agreement as to what the transition program would be. So same thing with Burkina Faso. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Because the way it is, if this decision to withdraw stands, they certainly would have no leverage over, ECOWAS would have no leverage over them at all. So it's like they are free from the influence of ECOWAS.
So in last October, I was in Lomé, in the Lomé Peace and Security Conference that was held in the city to give some voice to the junta to express their misgivings and their problems and what they really wanted. But before the conference, I had always written that, look, these military men or these soldiers are not going anywhere. In fact, sometimes we get easily carried away that somehow when people stage coup, they are willing to leave. No, that is not the case at all. From our experiences in the 70s and the 80s, they are not willing to leave. So whenever they come out with transitional documents, mostly is a way to buy time to actually entrench themselves and maintain a foothold in government. In fact, we saw it in previous transitions. And I've always said that when transitions are exceeding 24 months, it means that people are not willing to go, because any serious transition should happen within 15 months. And so when in Togo, the interior minister of the Nigerian government mounted the stage and said that they needed 3 years as transition period, I realized that that is not going to happen. They are looking for means or ways and means to stay on. And everything that they have done since then has proven that they really want to stay on and not willing to hand over to the civilians. And so by breaking away from ECOWAS, it means that ECOWAS from now onwards will not have the legitimacy and the authority to tell them what to do. And so they stay. And as this discussion moves on, we will come to talk about how the global geopolitics is also supporting their stance on this. Thank you.
And let's go straight into that. I mean, this global geopolitics. The truth is that you look at it, this countries also enjoy some kind of support from, you know, some powerful countries in the world. A good example is Russia. Russia, of course, you know, has been propping up the regime in Burkina Faso. We've seen Russia active in Niger as well, and also in Mali. So the question to ask is, do you think some of these powerful countries are actually the ones driving things, that they are the ones driving things at the background, pushing these countries, pushing these military leaders now to take the actions that they're taking?
Thank you very much. Let's first of all address some of the reasons they gave for this schism or for this withdrawal from ECOWAS. One of them was that ECOWAS is not helping them to fight terrorism. And that is not the fact. In fact, in 2013, ECOWAS forces under AFISMA, African-led peace mission in Mali, African forces were the forces that actually protected urban and semi-urban areas from being overrun by Al-Qaeda and other terror affiliates that were running amok in Mali. In fact, Ghanaian soldiers were there, Nigerian soldiers. In fact, Nigeria, the commander of the forces was a Nigerian commander. And so you look at all these, and his second in command was from Niger. And so you look at all this and you realize that most of the accusations that are being raised by this junta are not legitimate. Now, subsequently, after the first Mali coup, the bloc put pressure on the junta to transfer power to the civilians. But there was some, midway, what I would say, some compromise where they formed a military civilian government.
Yes.
Later, Assimi Goïta took over from the civilians and had an absolute military control in Bamako. What did he do? He invited Wagner, Russian mercenaries. Now, this invitation clearly shows that he was protecting his interest and not that of the people. He wanted Bamako to be protected by Wagner so that he stayed on, because he knew that other soldiers would be planning a counter coup, or other soldiers would also develop the appetite to take over. Just like we are seeing in Burkina Faso, every now and then we see counter coups being staged and then being, quenched. So if you look at the whole situation, you would realize that the junta or the juntas are almost always concentrating on their own security as against fighting terrorism. Now, Russia sees itself being isolated around the world, and it founds a paradise, so to speak, in the Sahel, where states that have been isolated by their bloc or regional bloc wanting some support. So it has decided to give that lifeline, and in return have some control over the resources and the politics of these countries. And these countries, because they have been marginalized or isolated, and in any case, such isolation is legal. The ECOWAS Charter or Protocol allows member states to sanction countries that are under military rule. They have to hand over. Whatever ECOWAS has done so far is legal. When ECOWAS is going overboard, some of us will come out to say it. But when whatever they are doing is legal, it is legal. Niger is not the first country to be threatened with military invasion or military intervention. In 2017, ECOWAS was in Gambia, where Yahya Jammeh was refusing to leave, and he was forced out of office because he had lost the election and we needed stability in the region. And so he needed to leave. So these are some of the issues that comes up, because then you see clearly that this is about regime protection and self-preservation rather than national interest.
Do you think these regimes can actually go it alone? Because that's the impression they are giving. I mean, yes, it is true they formed what they call the Alliance for Sahel States, but even that alliance itself, you can't see anything on ground. You can't see anything that they've achieved on ground. One cannot confidently say they're going to achieve anything. So now they have decided to pull out of ECOWAS. They want to run things on their own, probably form another alliance or collapse everything into the Alliance of Sahel State. And the question is, can these three countries, especially when you look at the countries themselves, they are among the poorest in the region, can they actually run things on their own without collaborating with their neighbors all around within the ECOWAS region?
Yes. First of all, a few states in Nigeria, the budgets of a few states in Nigeria can beat the economies of these three countries combined. That is the reality. And so these countries are not economically strong. That is one. Two, they are landlocked countries. None of them has access to the sea. None of them. All of them are landlocked on all sides. In order to get heavy goods coming in to their territory, they need coastal West African states to get them. And one may ask, are coastal West African states the only coastal states that border these countries? No. They are also bordered by Algeria, Mauritania, Libya, and others. However, most of the population of these states are concentrated in their south, which means they are closer to littoral West African states who are ECOWAS member states. And so they need these states, because if you are going to transport goods from Libya to your urban centers in the Sahel, then you are going to pay a lot. In fact, the people may not be able to afford to buy such goods that will reach them from Libya or Algeria. And the worst thing is that Mali, for instance, is also having some cold relations with Algeria. Because before Mali decided to leave this bloc or ECOWAS, it had also had cold relations with Algeria by withdrawing from the Algerian Accord, where Algeria mediated between moderate Tuareg rebels and Bamako. And so they are really, really complicating issues for themselves. However, this does not mean that other ECOWAS members stand to lose nothing. No, we are also supposed to be concerned, because then we have terror groups in the Sahel that are interested in destabilizing coastal states. And so these states can decide to give them the room to actually inflict some attacks or to attack coastal states. And so that is also something that should make other ECOWAS states tread cautiously, because these are states that have terror groups operating from their territories as at the epicenter of their actions. So that is also something that should be taken seriously.
Now, look, you look at the three countries, the three regimes now. All of them came to power on the excuse that they wanted, that the security situation in their countries were bad and that they wanted to fix it. They've been, in some cases, like in the case of Mali, the military has been there for over a year now, or about 2 years, if not going to 3. has anything changed security-wise in these countries?
This is a very good question, sir. Because nothing has changed and it has gotten worse. The data we are receiving, both qualitative and quantitative, shows that the excuse for all these three coups were insecurity. That is the excuse they used, insecurity. In Bamako, they mentioned insecurity. In Ouagadougou, it was insecurity. In Niamey, insecurity. But these countries have their citizens being battered now than ever before. So even though there were challenges when international forces and civilian governments were in place, now things have gotten worse. And sometimes analysts play along, are carried away. They try to play to the gallery by supporting people who are just excited that military governments are in office, and youth like myself, who, when they were growing up, did not see military rule, did not experience. Now, if you grew up under military rule in Nigeria, in Niger, and in the Sahel, in those days, you will not be entertaining it. But currently, people are carried away, and there are a lot of jubilations here and there. But we have seen other people who are also getting worried because the military are doing everything to suppress any opposition or any criticism against them. Any critique against them is seen as subversion. And that has been how they behave. So currently, what we are seeing is worsening case of insecurity. In Mali, the Fulbe or the Fulani are being attacked every now and then. Every Fulani is labeled as a terrorist, which is so wrong. If you go to Burkina Faso, that is the same situation. And even terrorism is being ethnicized. And that can really engulf the whole region, because these junta are only protecting the capitals where they are effective and where they are getting some revenue to, exercise control over their territories.
Let me ask you a final question now. For a long time, the three of them too have been whipping up this anti-French sentiments, and the message has really resonated with their citizens. But for how long do you think they'll continue to use that narrative now to get the support of their people? Because at some point, that message will just fade away.
Yeah. Firstly, I have been one of the people who have in the past lambasted the French colonial policy or post-colonial policy in West Africa. In fact, it didn't sound well, it didn't look well, and it didn't have the right effect. And so France, while it was undergoing some reforms, in fact, much of French post-colonial policy in West Africa has been akin to what Charles de Gaulle implemented in France in the 1950s and 60s. And so those things are gone, and France should have also evolved, but then they didn't. And it's one of the reasons that we have this problem. However, if you look at the whole thing, as you said, you cannot keep it. It is an overflogged horse. You cannot keep whipping at that sentiment. French, they've left. It's up to you to make the citizens comfortable. The French had to leave because you felt that they were not doing well. Fair enough. Now you are in power. How do you make the people comfortable? Some of these moves, like this, the movement away from ECOWAS and other things, are what we call the blame game to create the external enemy, which is currently ECOWAS, because they use the French. Now the French have left. So now the new trick is to accuse ECOWAS for all the problems of the Sahel. And when ECOWAS is no more, what do you do next? Are you going to accuse the people now? The people will rise against you. This has happened over and over and over after independence. And I see it happening again. The junta should keep the political system open. The people must choose their leaders and then see to themselves as supporting the nation building of their own countries, having the freedom to speak. Under military rule, who am I, Ghanaian, to join a Nigerian discussion and be talking my mind? And no, it will not happen. But now, because Nigeria is under civilian rule or is under some form of democracy, That is why I'm able to express myself. And you're able to ask me the questions you were asking me. The people in the Sahel deserve same.
Fidel Owusu, thank you very much for coming on the program, and thank you for your time with us.
You're most welcome, sir.
Appreciate it. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back. Stay with us, don't go away.